Hey everyone, how are you doing today? How's life in confinement? Someone just asked a question about a pet peeve. They say why are watch straps so short, or was it why are watch hands so short? I missed that question, but if that person can go ahead and ask that again. What I've been seeing is people have been leaving some questions for me to answer because they are going to sleep and they're not necessarily here for the show. It's been a little bit of a challenge to do shows that work for everybody's schedule. I did a show at 3:30 in the morning, my time. I was trying to do it for some people in Asia, in Australia, and Europe, and so it's been an interesting moving target. That's been always the weird challenge of doing a business like an online publication, is because you reach people all over the world. Hello, William. So, how's everyone doing? Over the weekend, we got the news here in Los Angeles, I guess around the United States, that things are going to be officially shut down for the remainder of April. And everyone's trying to figure out what's going on. Oh, hello, Ivan from Bulgaria. Hello again, William. So I did a show yesterday, like I said, well, I guess it was earlier today at 3:30 in the morning on smartwatches. I talked about, hello, Tom. I talked about the Garmin operating system versus the Apple Watch. And, oh, thank you for is it wrist race? Is that how it's pronounced? Ross? Hello from Connecticut. Hello from Loch Lomond, I'm guessing that is in Ireland. Hello from Austria. Oh, I love all the people that are joining. So I guess this is a good time for Europe. I didn't realize that. I thought the morning time would be better. Anyways, I was just saying about this video I did about smartwatches, and this was a topic that was super important to me, and that is talking about how smartwatches can be used during solo training or exercising. Hello, VT from Baton Rouge. Hello, Longleaf from Canada. Hello, Ryan from Mars. A little bit of a distance there, but I hope the lag isn't too much of a problem there. Hello from Copenhagen. That's great to see everyone's coming from. Oh, hello, Captain Zed from Houston. Hello from Iraq. Oh, that's cool. Ireland. Multiple people from Ireland. This is great. Yes, your name, sir, is in, I believe, Chinese characters, and I am not able to read that, so you are correct. Oh, hello from Helsinki. Oh, Iraq. I'm sorry. I apologize about my pronunciation. Hello from Washington, D.C. So I guess the question is, are you guys, I mean, I know you guys are mostly interested in traditional watches. I'm mostly interested in traditional watches. How many of you are using smartwatches for things like exercising and stuff like that? I've been doing a lot. I've been loving it because in a sort of way, it's like a personal trainer on your wrist. You say you want to burn 500 calories, you know when you've done it. You want to work out for 30 minutes, you know when you've done it. So Sonny, yes, you've been using smartwatches. I know you have, sir. I'm trying to get more people to do it. I want people to incorporate smartwatches into their life because there's things that smartwatches can do that these beautiful items cannot do. And one of the points I was trying to make is if you look at this assortment of watches here, this represents quartz movements and mechanical movements and stuff in between. There's a spring drive movement here. They all do the same stuff. There's no like new complications. There's a few things. You have your time, you have some calendar, you have chronograph, you have GMT. There's a few other little exotic things, but for the most part, they don't do too much. Okay, so people here are talking about some of the smartwatches they have. It took me a long time to get into a smartwatch to use it as a fitness device. Okay, I've been wearing these for years. I'm probably ahead of the curve. I've worn, I don't know how many different smartwatches on my wrist so far. And only recently have I started to use them a little bit more for exercise purposes. So these days, while we're all stuck indoors and we can only go outside for a little bit to exercise, we can't go out exercising with people, we can't go to the gym, I find that having a smartwatch that has activity tracking features can help a lot. And a lot of them have like little gyms. They can tell you motivational things and stuff like that. So anyways, let's move on to some traditional watches here. Someone's talking about having a smart band. People say they don't feel the need to wear a smartwatch. Yeah, listen, I hear you. I'll tell you what, the one thing that I absolutely do not care about in my smartwatch is notifications of like emails and calls and things like that. I guess it's helpful if like I'm taking a hike and my Apple Watch tells me I have a text message. I don't have to like go look at my phone. That's helpful, but I'm really interested in what the smartwatch can do that your phone cannot do, and that's really important to me. Start with a white and green watch. Okay, so this watch, this is a swatch actually. Um, and this watch had a great name. I think it was called like the Scuba Libre or something like that. This came out a few years ago. Sorry, the battery has since died in here. But this watch was like, I don't know, $100 and something. And I thought this was so cool because it's a dive style watch. It's all plastic, of course, but it's a dive style watch with a skeletonized quartz movement that has these fun colors. And I just thought these were so great. Again, this was, I don't think every color version was called the Scuba Libre. Maybe that was just this white and green one, or maybe the entire collection was called Scuba Libre. But if you wanted just sort of a fun, summery swatch, very inexpensive, but that said like, hey, I'm a watch lover, I don't know. I always thought this was really nice. And again, it's a swatch, so it's plastic and it's simple and it's, you know, nothing fancy or anything like that. But Scuba Libre Chlorophysh. Okay, thank you so much. I'm actually glad I remembered the name. I was like, it had some fun name. The Shorokov. Okay, I'll pull that one out. Expensive for Russian movement. Well, it's not a Russian movement. I'll talk about the Shorokov in a little bit. Anyways, this was just a fun piece I found, and I really like the skeletonization that you can see in there. And I was talking about high-end quartz, and I was showing. Okay, there's 3 watches here on this desk that have display quartz movements, and they're different levels and different price points and things like that. So, okay, so this is probably the least expensive one, and you can see the clear case as well as the clear dial, and there is a lot of interest to be seen there. And you know, look here, the coil here has been, I don't know, wrapped in green or something like that. Usually this would be copper, but it's green color there to match. Nice little details, honestly, for like $100 and something watch. Really cool little details there when it comes to this. And I've always said that when Swatch wants to do something nice, they do so. What does high-end quartz even mean? Boy, well, someone just talked about having the FP Jour and the Elegante. That's an example. Basically, what do I mean by high-end quartz? Well, the reason that quartz movements were so revolutionary, especially in the late 70s and 1980s when the cost started to come down, was that it was very inexpensive to make the movements. It would take just dollars or pennies or something like that, because you could literally print most parts of it. It didn't require the complicated manufacturing process that mechanical movements required. And so what ended up happening is the price of watches could go down significantly because the most important part of the watch, the movement, its price went down. So for a long time, quartz watches were associated with inexpensive components because they were trying to keep prices down. So you had inexpensive movement and dial and hands and case and strap. So for a long time, people associated quartz watches, not all quartz watches, but many quartz watches, with low quality overall. Then more recently, you started to have high-end quartz. It's actually not recent at all. It's just more recently, I think, in sort of the mainstream watch collector communities. You had quartz movements that themselves are more high-end, which means that the case, the bracelet, the dial, everything else was high-end. So when I say high-end quartz, what I'm essentially saying is a watch that's meant to satisfy enthusiast standards but doesn't have a mechanical movement. So again, so this is a quartz one that has a display movement, which is nice. And then, going on the display movement kick here, this is the first undone. This is the undone. This is called the Urban Kili, I believed. And this was, I think, a little bit more expensive than the Swatch. It was $200 and something, probably about double the price. And this watch has a Seiko quartz movement in there. And I think there's a piece of plastic over here. Yeah. This watch, really made a lot of headway because it was sort of this fun way of saying, hey, we like watches because we like the movements. And even if you like quartz, you can like that as well. So this was a few $100s, and this was probably the first watch many people had ever seen that had, for all intents and purposes, a display case back for a quartz movement. Wasn't the first, but this is probably one of the first one a lot of people had ever seen. So this one is definitely fun there. And this watch is steel and metal, so it's going to be a little bit more of a high-end watch. I'll put this one on. This is 40 millimeters, just so everyone sees. Someone's talking about thermocompensated quartz and things related to the accuracy of the quartz movement. It's not universal, but it is definitely true that a lot of high-end quartz watches have better movements that are more accurate or perform in a better way. I thought this was nice. For the money, this was a great watch. I really enjoyed this. These are all very customizable as well. I believe that Undone still produces these, but again, this is the Undone Urban Kili, and it had a display case back. And then I'll pull out another watch that I've just been kind of having around here for the last couple of days because I like it so much and it makes sense. Is again, I've played with this before. I've shown this is the Citizen Caliber 0100, the most accurate autonomous, meaning it's not connected, movement in the world. And there you have the movement and the movement display case back there. Much more beautiful. This is sort of on par with how nicely the Grand Seiko 9F movement is displayed. I have some watches that do have the 9F movement in them, but those Grand Seiko watches are they all have solid case backs. So the Grand Seiko watches that do have display case backs for the 9F, I think those are a little bit less common. I know that this is over $7,000. So this is a gorgeous watch. But for example, this movement isn't just more accurate. This is accurate to 1 second a year. So that's incredible. Isn't just more pretty to look at, but there's other types of technology in here. For example, the anti-whiplash on the seconds hand, the fact that the seconds hand hits so precisely. There's certain features that move the hands back into place if they've been moved out of place by shock. And so these are little interesting features that you have in these particular high-end, not all, but a lot of the high-end Japanese quartz movements. And I would say that both Seiko, Citizen, and Casio all have what I would call high-end quartz for sure. Anything else here, quartz, that I want to talk about? Well, I guess, there's this one. I just felt bad. We're talking about Citizen and Seiko. We don't include a Casio. This is not high-end quartz, but this is one of my favorite partnership watches that Casio came out with last year. And this is the G-Shock. This is the Glide that they did with Herschel Supply, which is a company that's based in Canada and has an office here in Los Angeles. And they sort of transformed the Glide into a watch that they imagined would be worn by like a Vietnam veteran. So if a Vietnam veteran leaving the war, if these watches existed at the time, this is what they imagined they'd be wearing on their wrist. And someone is saying, they said high-end quartz at Casio. Absolutely. Look at the MRG collection. Look at the Oceanus. Which isn't sold in North America. Look at a lot of the stuff they've done. I mean, you're spending $7,000 on a G-Shock with a fancy GPS movement that does all this stuff. Do you not consider that high-end quartz? Someone just asked a question about Citizen there. It went by too quickly. If you can ask that again, I'd love to answer it. Oh, and this watch, the best part, and they took this off of a lighter that said it, but it says here, you can surf later. And so the idea was that it was sort of a reminder of people in war. You'd rather be doing is surfing, but you can do it later. You got something to do that's hard right now. And today, this has special kind of meaning for me in this sort of COVID-19 isolation zone, because here in California, the beaches are actually closed. And we can't go surfing or anything on the beach. And you can do it later. And so it's this reminder of tough it up right now. We are in a warlike time, and we have to make difficult choices and sacrifices and fight. And we have to fight. We are in a fighting zone right now. So this reminder tells me we can have fun later. It's coming. But right now, we all have to work hard. So again, this is the Herschel version of it. And one of the things that I liked about this is a little bit hard to tell, but the actual crystal over the screen is slightly tinted yellow. And I had a long conversation with the creative director of Herschel about this watch, and they showed me these flashlights. It's like a flashlight with like a bent head that's sort of used for military purposes, and the same color. And rather than having a clear piece of glass or material over the lamp. It has a slight yellowed one. So this is sort of inspired by that look. And I just thought this was great. This was like, I don't know, 120 or 130 bucks. But this was definitely a really fun one. So this was one of my favorite collaboration Casio G-Shock watches of the last year. Okay, let's talk about mechanical watches and things like that. I was talking about Undone, and the other day I had the Undone Basecamp. This is the Basecamp 2, which came out just a little bit after the original Basecamp, not too much longer. They upgraded some things in here. I think the water resistance was one of them. I don't remember what else they did. You can still see the display case back there. This watch was, I think, about 300 bucks or something like that. And this is just a lot of watch for the money. So I really like the Basecamp ones. They're 40 millimeters wide. They're highly customizable. They're inspired by, vintage Rolex Explorers and stuff like that. But they just did a good job. I really think that if you're sort of just getting into watches, you want to get someone a gift that isn't too expensive, you're on a budget, or you just want to play with some themes, Undone makes a lot of really nice stuff. And this one, remember, it has a Lexan crystal, so it's a synthetic material. It's better than acrylic. It's the same material that's used on like headlights, and Lexan is used for some cooking stuff. But I haven't worn this one too much to see how it like survives in the real world, but it's definitely an increase over Hesalite in terms of quality and the look of it. So I thought that was really interesting, the way that Undone designed these, and again at the price points that are like a few $100, really quite affordable stuff. I'm just going to pull out this. This is an Ernst Benz, a company that I've known for a long time. We don't cover them that much on aBlogtoWatch, but because the thing is, Ernst Benz doesn't come out. There is a Maigret in there. That's true. There is a Maigret. It's not in the middle, but there's a Maigret over here. That's the Maigret. I don't know if someone's able to see that. Really good eyes. Ernst Benz hasn't come out with a brand new watch in a little while. They've come out with different colors and doing a lot of limited editions and things like that. But this is one of the brands that I've always liked. They have a fun take on things. They've done the John Varvatos collection. They had a good partnership with John Varvatos. They might still. But this is just one I sort of had laying around. And as you know, I'm big on black and yellow. So it was sort of cool for me to see this black and yellow theme here. Good lume on this one. This is the bigger one. This is 45 millimeters wide. They definitely make watches in smaller proportions. But, it's just a good classic watch. It combines some modern elements. Obviously, the hands and the hour markers are a little bit more vintage style. But, as watches get kind of crazy and you want to go back to things that are comfortable and a little bit conservative, but also still has I don't want to say flashy, but attention-getting, this is definitely something that is cool. Someone said there's too many Junkers in my collection. I don't know what that means, because I think the brand Junkers I may only have one or two of. Look, I'm someone who's interested in a variety of watches. And do I have watches that are worse than other watches in my collection? Sure. But as someone who's a collector of watches, there's nothing bad. There's horrible watches out there that I do not have and will never have. But if I am showing you something, there's a reason. Because I think it's good for someone, or I was interested in a time and place. I'm not trying to impress anyone with my watches. And we've talked about this a lot. I'm not here to show you a bunch of Rolexes and expensive watches with gold and diamonds and be like, hey, look how much money I put into watches over the years. That's stupid. I don't want to do that. This is about appreciating art and expression, which it doesn't relate to price. Yes, of course, it costs more to have a watch that is better made and has more expensive materials in it. But if you focus on the value of watch just being its popularity or its retail price, you really sort of missed the mark. Since I'm talking about Undone, and black and yellow watches, I'm just showing again my Undone aqua black and yellow. That's a watch that we creative directed with Undone. Gotta wash the strap here. But I just have so much fun with this thing. I'm so sorry that the sale for this watch was a little bit weird. We tried something new. What I tried with this watch is I said, let's let's have the period of time open so as many people can order these as they want during the open sales period. So it wasn't quite a limited edition, even though it worked out that way. It was a little bit confusing. But the people that got these, I know really, really love them a lot. Sorry, there's a few comments there I missed while I was talking about this. I really got to wash this strap. I was really worried about, like, oh my God, the strap is going to get so dirty. But I put this strap in the washing machine and it comes out just great. The yellow watch is time weed smoking Bob Marley in Jamaica. Okay. Yeah, so this is just like a Yachtmaster 2 style bezel, but it's ceramic. Again, this was $585. There was a lot of value in this watch for sure. I mean, it's my design, so I love wearing it, but the feedback you get on a timepiece like this when you wear it in the wild is great. Speaking of divers watches, this is an Icopod. This is an early Icopod. It just says pod on there, and that was actually before it was Icopod. Why it was called Icopod is because of a guy named Oliver Ike who came in to work with Mark Newsom on this, and before that, Mark Newsom just created these. So this is a pod, and this is the Sea Slug, and this was actually the Sea Slug GMT. So there's a few versions of the Sea Slug, and this is the Sea Slug GMT. And as many people know, Mark Newsom was the person who was primarily responsible for the Apple Watch. So the strap on the Apple Watch and the shape of a lot of it, they weren't super clear about that. But basically, the Apple Watch is a Mark Newsom design when it really comes down to it. And so the Sea Slug, this is a watch this was from the 90s. This predated the Apple Watch by a long time. And this was his first diver. And I think that he, played with the notion of diving watches by calling it the Sea Slug. You wouldn't necessarily want to call like a professional diving instrument after, a lowly mollusk in the ocean. But it worked really well. I think that, the design's great. It's a little small. Remember, this is from the early 1990s. So this was the size of the watch at the time. And I think what's really interesting when it comes to the Icopod watches is they're either very big or very small. There's like no Icopod watches. They're just sort of this mid size. This is 37, and then with the megapods and all that stuff, it went really big. So, the Solaris, for example, which is that double-sided quartz one, that's pretty small as well. So, yeah, so someone's saying this is from the 1990s. It looks pretty good. It does. It looks great. Again, it's a little small for my taste right now at 37 millimeters, but if you're into that, more power to you. And again, this was a really cool watch, and it just sort of goes to show how nice some of those Mark Newsom designs have aged over the years. Yeah, someone's saying shame about Icopod. I don't even know who owns Icopod right now, but that's a brand that I really love and want to see come back more. Someone says this looks like 41. It's not. It's not. Who's going to be able to service it? This watch? Well, look, this just has a standard ETA movement in there. So, the movement in here, I'm trying to see if they did any modification to it. No, it's just a 2024 with a unique, not 2024, 2893, I believe, with some unique finishing. I'm not 100% sure exactly if that's it. I'll have to look a little bit more to the movement, but they weren't making their own movements. I think this is just an ETA. It definitely says Swiss made on there. The Kickstarter watches by Icopod. Yeah, I mean, look, the new Icopod coming back is nice. I know the people, I've talked to them. They're definitely make some cool products, but it's a lower end product than the ones from the 90s and 2000s, which were honestly overpriced, but fantastic. I remember at one point I was speaking with someone that was working in Icopod, and this was to talk about, I forgot the name of it, but it was a chronograph and it was platinum. And it was one of the pod watches, and it had that nice, beautiful kind of curvy look to it. And it was platinum. It was like some crazy amount of money, like $70,000 or $80,000 for like a platinum chronograph. And they were joking. They were like, "This is probably the most expensive platinum watch on the market, or the most expensive chronograph watch on the market with a 7750 or something like that." So it was expensive. A lot of it had to do with the fact that Newsom, wanted certain royalties, and it got complicated. Anyways, Icopods are cool if you can find them. Boy, what do I talk about next? Here's a watch. This is from Horologie Calamai. I'm not sure if the brand is still around right now. This one has a little sticker on the back. But this is an Italian watchmaker, and this is one of their pilot watches. And I'm not sure again, what's going on with this brand here, but I just sort of like the nice little classic watch, not too big. Has this crown here for an inner rotating bezel. It's got some Italian flag colors on there. You can see the green, the white, and the red. Is it super distinctive? Is it different than a lot of the other pilot watches out there? I'm not per se sure. For me, this is somewhere like between, the style or the theme, somewhere between like, a Bremont and a Zinn or something like that. But they had their own character to them, and I thought these were pretty nice. The dial could have used a little bit more AR coating, but for sort of a traditional looking pilot watch, a chronograph with an inner rotating bezel, not too bad, not too bad. The crowns look too big being on both sides. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the thing is this. The crowns are a great size for tactility. So if you want to actually grab the crown and touch it and operate it, it's a good size. And so they made sure that it was as useful as possible. But it's true that from a proportion and design perspective, the crowns look a little bit big. I think if this one wasn't here, it'd look a little bit better. But the size of these things was really designed to give it maximum, like utility. You can see there the knurling in the pushers and on the crown itself. Those are actually really nice details. Oh, hello from Humboldt. Multiple people from Humboldt County have been on checking out the show. I like that. Okay, well, on the theme of pilot watches, let's continue, I guess. This is a Zinn. This is a 657, I believe. This watch I bought many years ago. I don't wear it that much because it's actually a little small for me now. I would like to upgrade at some point to the 7 series, like the 757, which is a little bit bigger. This was 40 millimeters wide as the 657. Someone is saying that they feel like Zinn is overrated. I don't really know what that means. I think that Zinn is underrated, but I don't know what what people have been saying about in that person's circle when it comes to Zinn. I've always felt that Zinn offers an enormous amount of watch for the money, and the quality is great. So this was the 657S, the Schwartz. Zinn is overrated. Someone's saying Rolex is overrated. I mean, look, don't rate watches. I think that's really the thing. Just stop rating watches. What do I think of Bata watches? Some of those are nice. Maybe they're underrated. I don't know. This is sort of a nice all-purpose pilot-style watch in black. Just typical Zinn quality. This watch is, I don't know, well over 10 years old. Breguet, I'm a big fan of Breguet. I think Breguet is, talking about underrated. People put like Patek and Vacheron and Audemars Piguet in this like category, but they don't include Breguet, which is stupid. But between all those brands, I'd way rather have a Breguet, just personally. Someone's saying there's no such thing as overrated, only overpriced. That's an interesting way of looking at it. How is that too small? It's not too small. It's just that I was going through sort of a larger watch phase, and I have another Zinn here that I can show you that's a little bit bigger, that's a little bit more my taste. I just like, for sport watches, I just like them a little bit bigger. Is Breguet the oldest watch brand in the world? No, I don't know. I mean, Breguet has bad ad. Yes, Breguet and Blancpain, which are both part of the Swatch Group, classically have really bad advertising, but they have great stories within the brand. This is the Zinn EZM10. So this is a completely different kind of Zinn. Both of them are definitely pilot style. As you can see, a sort of different ethos here for sure. The EZM10 is a much more modern product in a lot of ways. This is a steel watch that's PVD coated with a simple ETA movement. This has a modified movement, tegimented titanium, sapphire crystal over the bezel, a bunch of features and things like that. Look, people are sitting there talking about what the oldest brand is. I think that the important thing to say is which brands, not are the oldest, but which brands over the totality of their history have been making watches the longest. So pretty much all of the brands that say they've been around since 17, blah, 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 they've ceased operation for sometimes enormous periods of time. So rather than saying to yourself, a watch has been around in total for 200 years, why not ask the question, how many years has it actually been making watches? So Vacheron says that they've been making watches continuously for like 250 years. I don't know all the details about that, but for me, it's really important to ask yourself not when do they start, but when it comes to how long they've actually been making watches. Is Tegiment worth it? Oh yeah, Tegiment is great. There is an Oris on the table. There is. So someone's saying, what is the material? For someone's asking, oh man, so many questions. Someone's saying my perfect size for daily wear probably averages out to about 42. That's probably my sort of preferred size. But again, it really depends on the watch. Sometimes smaller and sometimes bigger. This one is, I think it's about 45 millimeters wide. I love the integrated pushers there. Simple clasp on both Zinn. Look, Zinn has some really cool clasps on some of the rubber straps. They have ones now that kind of emulate the Breitling ones. This watch is very, very light because of the titanium. And so this is a sandblasted, hardened titanium. I've been wearing the hell out of this thing, and there's not a single scratch on here anywhere, which is fantastic. GP is overrated. You guys love this conversation about underrated or overrated. Again, Fortis, it just depends on the watch. It just depends on the watch. Someone thinks that they have a Casio, which is a Zinn homage. This is one tough watch. So there's tegimented steel and there's tegimented titanium. Tegimentation is a proprietary process. That word is made up by Zinn, and it's a hardening technique where they surface harden. So let's put this one on the aBlogtoWatch is underrated. Thank you. I think we're rated pretty well, but I appreciate the idea that more people could appreciate us more. So one of the things people are talking about Breguet actually, which I think is important. Tegimentation. You see that, Phil? Someone asked me to say that 5 times in a row. Subjective opinions are overrated, probably. But anyways, I was talking about the movement here. This is a base ETA movement, but that's been modified in a lot of ways. One of the ways it's been modified is it has diapal, and so there's a diamond coated part of the escapement, which is supposed to be extremely durable over time, doesn't need lubrication. So that's an interesting element there. Also, the actual functionality has changed. So what Zinn was trying to do is emulate the functionality of the classic Lemania 5100, which isn't actually made right now. And what was interesting about the Lemania 5100, as well as certain other movements of this that are like this, is they have a central seconds, central minutes chronograph. And so if you see here, the seconds hand is moving. I just started the chronograph. But there's another hand here which remains. So there are 2 different looking hands, which I like. So that means that on this chronograph, you use the main dial to measure the chronograph seconds and minutes, which is quite... Bull Toro is underrated. There you go, Han. I love how you remembered Bull Toro. This is some obscura right there. John Biggs and I, in an episode of Our Time, long time ago, he took down a lot of the episodes of Our Time because they're not necessarily politically correct, because we made fun of a lot of people and played with accents. But Bull Toro is a brand that has a watch that we thought was excitingly funny, and we talked about it. Anyway, so going back to the chronograph here. So here you can see about the hand's about to move. Oh, you see that? So the minute hand moved there, it jumped 1 full step. So central minutes, central seconds, then you have an hour counter here. And so all of the chronograph elements are in this nice orange color. And then you have subsidiary seconds and a synchronized 24-hour hand, which is AM, PM. So this might look like your standard, 3-register chronograph at a first glance, but this is actually functionality. It's a little bit different. And the reason I mentioned Breguet is that the Breguet Type 21, its movement, while being different, is the exact same operation. Central minutes, central seconds, chronograph. So you can spend, over $10,000 on one of those beautiful Breguets, or this is, less than half the price and offers a completely different type of watch. But it's just interesting to know that the movement does that. And again, this watch is unbelievably comfortable. It came on the strap, but I put it on a bracelet just because I love these bracelets. And I had a Tutima the other day out here that had a similar style bracelet. So this isn't per se a Zinn style. This is like a German, like mid-1980s German style of bracelet. You can see here it's done a little bit different way on this watch here. So I like these bracelets a lot. I find them comfortable and cool. And these H links, they look kind of cool. I mean, you'd have to have an H brand. You'd have to, like aBlo or something like that. I don't know why they haven't had links like that with H's. They're cool. Screws adjust tension on the bezel. If someone's asking about the screws, yeah, I mean, look, one of the ways that you can take the bezel off if you need to service it or something like that is screws like that. Some watches don't have those. You have to like pry it off. But Zinn watches are designed to be serviceable. That's really, really important. Right here, if you look at that, that is a capsule that is meant to absorb moisture if it gets inside of the case. And so this changes colors if water has been introduced into the case, and then a service professional can take this part out and then remove it. So that is so there's argon. It's not actually argon anymore. It's a different gas. There's gas inside of the watch, and that prevents from there being humidity. But if water does enter, then this is the separate system there to help remove it. So that's a lot of really cool things about that. Does this have a diver's extension? Oh, it does. It has like a really big diver's extension. I don't know why, but it has like a pretty, I guess if you're wearing it over like a flight suit or something like that. Bidirectional rotating bezel, and once again, sapphire crystal over the bezel. I need an ore work in my collection. I agree, Brick Lane. I agree. So someone was mentioning Oris. This is, I think I talked about this a few episodes ago. What I think about the Zinn UX, love it. Look, I really love most of those. But, you know, it's true that sending a watch back to get a battery changed is a pain. So I think that, I don't know all of them, but some of them had that 10-year battery. That's really the way to go if you're going to get a quartz watch. Find those ones, those high-end ones that have like that 10-year battery. It does exist. So the Zinn was titanium, at least the EZM10. So this is a titanium watch. This is the first tegimented titanium watch that they came out with. And then this Zinn right here was in steel. So someone was asking if it was titanium or steel. This Oris is in steel, and this is the Big Crown Pro Pilot. This was a watch that we covered in our No Longer Made series because Oris only made this for a year. And I do want to remind you that the majority of watches that you will see on these downtime episodes do have full editorial articles on aBlogtoWatch. You just need to go ahead on the website and check. We were thinking about potentially like adding some links in this video, but since there's so many different watches and things like that, sometimes it's hard to do that. Okay, so the Pro Pilot is the sort of modern pilot watch collection of the Big Crown. They came out with some newer models that are dressy. So the Pro Pilot collection is quite big. There's tons of models in there now, but none of them combine a chronograph and a GMT like this. So this had a movement. This was a base ETA that was modified to have a GMT hand, and Oris just couldn't get them. So it had to discontinue this model collection, not because of any problems, but because of difficulties in getting the movement. So now you have GMT pilot watches they make and chronograph watches they make, but not GMT chronograph watches they make. So this one was about 44 millimeters wide. I thought this was a really nice one, and I'm really happy to have this because I just thought this was a great looking watch. And the Pro Pilot collection, it's very no nonsense. You know, it's the type of watch that isn't going to make anyone say, oh, you're trying to show off with your Oris. It's a nice tool watch, and it's very much the type of watch that maybe Omega used to be. Omega used to be like, you know, the thinking man's nice watch before they really became a luxury brand. And you could get, you know, a very nice Omega brand new for $2,000 or $3,000. Now that's really not the case. And so a lot of companies like Oris and others have come right on in. I'm sorry, some people asked me some questions there that just sort of went by. I wasn't able to see them all. It is wonderful being able to chat with all of you. I love it. But sometimes while I'm talking about the watch, it's challenging for me to stop and read the comments. The thinking man. Are you saying that people that wear Omega aren't thinking people? Well, the idea was it wasn't a luxury watch. It was more like a watch that was worn by an engineer or someone that understood mechanics or did something that was mechanically minded, whether that's hands-on or intellectually or something like that. Whereas Rolex, even though they make a good product, the idea if someone's wearing it, they're wearing it as a luxury status item, as opposed to, I appreciate well-made machines. And you have analogs like that in cars and things like that. These days, Omega is a very different brand. They have a lot more, gold watches and luxury. If you look at their marketing, they don't necessarily want to be that like tool watch brand anymore. Somebody wants an aBlogtoWatch electronic magazine subscription. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other thing. I mean, look, these days, especially with COVID-19, we're asking ourselves, what is it that we can do to monetize our content a little bit more by the audience? And this brings up a very interesting point, and that is, what is the viability of digital media in an era when advertising doesn't actually necessarily enhance the content? Sometimes it draws questions about it. We fully believe in the advertising model, but it doesn't necessarily work all the time. So we've thought to ourselves, what if aBlogtoWatch was a publication that people had to subscribe to read about? And what would that mean? And I've done some surveys about it, and I've come to the conclusion we're not quite ready for that yet. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, certain technology will become a little bit more advanced that allows that to happen better. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want people to have to subscribe just to read a single article. A lot of you, if you go to aBlogtoWatch all the time, you'd be like, you know what? I use this content. I like it. I'll pay a small monthly fee to look at the content. And, that's something that can be done. But what about if someone just comes off the internet and wants to read like one watch review? What if they want to read the review of just this Casio? Why would I make somebody spend a few dollars a month for just one review? I want people to spend like a quarter, 25 cents to read a review of a product that they're curious about. That technology doesn't really exist right now, and it's complicated by banks and things like that, but that's a whole other discussion. This is a Wempe. Wempe is a German watch retailer that has one store in the US. So someone's talking about excluded portion of my audience. It's a complicated discussion. I think people understand that good content is something to pay for, but we're just not there yet culturally. So this is the Zeitmeister. I forgot the exact name of this one. Maybe it's just the pilot. We definitely wrote a review of this on aBlogtoWatch. And Wempe is a brand that I really like a lot. Their watches are pretty conservative, but they tried. It's like how like Karlev Bucherer is actually, that's not PVD. This is ceramic, by the way. If someone was mentioning, this is a black ceramic watch, which is really cool. But anyways, going back to Wempe, it's sort of like, Karlev Bucherer. Obviously, is a little bit more expansive. They do a lot more marketing, but that's the in-house brand of the retailer Bucherer. Wempe has had their own in-house brand for a while, and the idea was to sell their own watch in their stores. And they're very good German-made watches. They don't necessarily have the most distinctive designs, but they're talking about underrated. People don't know too much about these. And what's interesting here is I think this is a chronometer, but these are German chronometers. And the German chronometric certification is a little bit different than the Swiss chronometric certification. And so that is actually like a little picture of the sort of Wempe facility in Glashütte, which is the town, and also in Glashütte is an observatory. So if you see that looks like an observatory, that's where they do a lot of the chronometric performance testing in Germany. So let me put this one on. Thoughts on precious metal watches? I mean, they're fine. I mean, if you like the look of gold, is a nice material. Gold is a nice material. Best black watch so far from 2020 downtime? Are you saying that, or are you you asking that? Someone likes platinum. Listen to me. So they're talking about Wempe using a lot of parts from Glashütte. Asking, I mean, look, what is the best? I mean, there's plenty of black watches out there. The best really depends on you. This one's, it's a very subtle watch, very conservative. It's sporty, but definitely something you could wear in a more elegant environment. I just really liked I really liked how this one came across. They did a very nice job here. And, we talk about German watches and people mention the usual suspects. People often forget that Wempe is one of those brands to include in the nice watches that come from Glashütte. Um, Someone's asking about this. This is a little bit bigger. It has kind of narrowish lugs, and it's black, so it looks smaller. But this was not that small. Maybe 42 millimeters, maybe 43. I don't remember the exact amount. There is the review of this on aBlogtoWatch. Which process is stronger, PVD or DLC? The problem is the question itself, because DLC is a material and PVD is an application process. So you actually use PVD to apply DLC. But when you say DLC, you're meaning that there's a particular type of hard coating. So PVD is just a process. It's just a process. But again, this watch is not a coated watch. This watch is black ceramic, and it's a matte finish. And I think it's really lovely. I think they did a really nice job with this one. So this is a Vempe. Why is everyone mentioning like female actresses' names? And someone's saying that they can use CVD to apply DLC. Okay. All right. And just again to talk about pilot style watches, this is the Laco Radox that I designed, and of course it is the type of product that is pilot watch themed. So I guess, I'm mostly into dive watches, but I'd say my second favorite are probably pilot style watches, and there's a few companies that have pilot-y style dive watches that are great. So I'm so happy with the way this thing came out. This watch could have gone wrong in so many ways. And Matt Smith Johnson from the aBlogtoWatch team, who is our art director, who obviously we worked on this very, very closely, and he came up with a lot of the design elements. We were worried, like, in execution, imagine, like, on paper going to execution. This could have gone wrong so many ways. But it just came out so nice, and I'm just so happy with this watch. Listen just as you design ladies' clothing. I missed part of this conversation. I'm intrigued as to what you guys are talking about. Certainly intrigued. Okay, let's see here. What else do we got to chat about in this episode? I got some dress watches here. I was going to talk about the Seiko towards the end. Isn't Laco German? It is. It is German. It's just not in Glashütte, as far as I know. Okay, so we got these three dress watches here. And these are all very different and very interesting. I'll start with the Christopher Ward. Christopher Ward is a brand that's sort of been all over the place in the last several years. I don't know that I can blanket recommend all their watches, but they have some cool stuff. Oh, ceramitized aluminum cases, not a big fan of those. Not a big fan of those. I'm just going to say that. I'm just not a fan of the ceramitized aluminum watches. They just don't hold up well. They just don't hold up well. I didn't say that Christopher Ward as a brand is old. I'm saying this model is not the newest one. But this is one of the original watches that included their movement called the SH21 movement, which is a 5-day power reserve one. And I thought it was really nice here. They created this power reserve indicator. It looks like the letter C for Christopher Ward. Thoughts on the Jaeger perpetual calendar? It's nice if you want a perpetual calendar. I'm not crazy in love with perpetual calendars for one simple reason. If you have multiple watches in your rotation and you have a perpetual calendar, you're going to be resetting it a lot of the time. So you need like a watch butler. If you remember from a couple years ago for April Fool's Day, I created the watch butler, and the watch butler was someone that would come to your house and service your watches, clean them up, and adjust them. So this is the SH21 movement. This is the in-house movement by Christopher Ward. And it's pretty nice. It's a bigger movement, but you can see here, this is one particular execution of it. I think they did a nice job. It's got two pretty big barrels in there, and that's why it has the 5 days of power reserve. A little bit on the thicker side. I think this was 40 millimeters wide, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe like 41 or 42. I think like 41. Not bad. Still not in love with the newer Christopher Ward logo, but I'm not alone. But they do a nice job. Again, not every single watch, but when Christopher Ward wants to do a nice job, they definitely come out with something. And I agree that the Trident ones are probably the best ones there. Here's the Alexander Chorokov. This is, I think they call this the Model 63. Does it look better in person? As opposed to what? The movement's great. So I love the engraving on the movement here. So Alexander Shorokov is a Russian watchmaker, but that moved to Germany. So it's a German brand, but by a Russian mind. Just to help sort of explain. Yeah, the rotor's really, really nice there. And this was actually their affordable watch. I like Shorokov a lot. I've always liked the brand. Don't have too much experience with the fuller collection. This is one of 2 Shorokov watches that I have, and the other one is a little bit different. But this is nice. This is definitely a nice watch. I gotta wind it up. I feel bad. I know when you see watches that aren't wound up, you're like, what's going on? The particular style here with the 60, 20, and 40 in these hands, it gives them a little bit of visual distinction, good proportions, good strap, really a good strap, very comfortable. You pay a little bit of a premium versus perhaps like your rank and file watch, but you get, as someone says, an artisanal look and quality that any watch enthusiast can stand behind. And they have some cool, artistic, colorful watches that I think are great. The Marmite watch, I'm not sure what color Marmite is. Speaking of dress watches, this is an Armand Nicolet, and this is part of the OHM movement collection. And this watch was kind of neat. What they did is they see here it says year 1967. So the OHM collection, which stands for like original something movement. I forgot what the H stands for. But what they do is they take these movements that are older movements and they refurbish them and then they decorate them and they do this whole process. They don't just take the old movements. They actually, really do a lot of service and decorate them. These probably don't come decorated. And they put them in a new collection. So you have a brand new watch that has the romance, if you will, of sort of a vintage movement combined into one piece here. I love the detailing on the case here. People can't necessarily see in all the pictures, but there's this concave sort of style here. Good polishing. Looks like a Calatrava from a distance. I love how when you say Patek Philippe Calatrava, that doesn't narrow it down. That's like thousands upon thousands of different watches. So this is the Armand Nicolet OHM. This was again, I forget the exact name of this one. There is a review on aBlogtoWatch about it. But again, if you're looking for a modestly sized dress watch with a nice design that has, again, the romance of an 1967 or around that era mechanical movement that's been refinished, it's cool. This one is, I think, either 39 or 40, something like that. Original historical movement. Thank you. I just forgot what the H stood for. Historic. That makes sense. I mean, I guess it's all history, right? But this was definitely a nice one. These are naturally limited, of course, because there's only so many movements. And the time and effort that Armand Nicolet puts into each of these is not superficial. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into making these movements nice again. Thoughts on Olech and Voss? Not bad, actually. Not bad. I'm not in love with all their things, but they definitely have a distinctive look if you're looking for like a tool watch of that style. Not the cheapest, but distinctive. Oh, I forgot to talk about the Maigret. I've assorted a decent number of Maigrettes over the years. This is by no means the highest end one, but it is one I found, and this is one of the versions of the Moana Pacific called the Waterman. And this actually represents one of their smaller sizes. So I think this is the 42 millimeter wide watch versus the standard one, which I think is 44 millimeters wide. And this has this is PVD, so this is going to be a steel case. And this is the watch that has, I don't know how many other watches have, this is the 9000 series Miyota movement in there. So some of these watches have had Swiss-made movements. Some of them have had, I think, lower priced citizen movements, but this is the one with the 9000 series. In what way are pin buckles better than deployants? They're smaller. They're not as bulky to wear. Deployants, I find, especially on straps, I find them unnecessary 8 out of 10 times. 8 out of 10 times. So this is the Moana Pacific Waterman. This is, again, just one of many fun styles that we've seen from Maigret. They haven't been I think, as original lately, but like many brands, they're trying to figure out what's going on in the world. But they're still making watches, and they're still coming out with some new novelty. Maigret is a brand that very early on was supportive of aBlogtoWatch, so I think of them fondly because they recognize the importance of our community early on. And someone's saying, nice Kiwi watch. Yes, this is a brand from New Zealand. Probably the only New Zealand watch brand that I'm familiar with. And I love celebrating my love of the world through my watch collection. So it's so nice to say this watch is from this country, this watch was designed by this person. So what have we talked about so far? We've talked about New Zealand, we've talked about Swiss people, we've talked about Japanese people, we've talked about English people, we've talked about German people, we've talked about people from Hong Kong. All of that, Italian people, because of the Bulgari right here, Russian people. So much of, the professional world is represented right here. What watch is in the top left corner almost out of frame? This one? Oh, this one. I forgot to pick this one up. This is a Citizen. This is one of the Aqualand watches. And again, this has been in a drawer, so this is an Eco Drive. It's got to work again. But the Aqualand is a collection of watches that has an automatic depth gauge in it. So you see this structure on the side here. Water enters right here, and even more to the left. This is the Girard-Perregaux. This is the Laureato Absolute World Timer. That's a cool watch. I talked about that in another episode. So the Citizen, this is one of the prettier versions of the Aqualand, and I love actually how comfortable it is despite the size. But you have here, a quartz diving watch that has a chronograph as well as the depth gauge. And I don't know that I've actually taken this one underwater, but I thought it was really pretty. And what's interesting, if you look at the Aqualand watches, there isn't too much, how should I say this? The Aqualand has never been the prettiest watch out there, right? It's kind of had this weird shape to it. So the original Aqualand was a precursor to the dive computer, but they were never really that pretty. And so this generation Aqualand, what I liked is Citizen really did their best to try to up the sexiness a little bit. They wanted to make it a little bit more of a lifestyle watch, and they did a lot of things on here that were correct. I don't actually know what the current generation ones are, or they make these still, but I think that this was a really cool Citizen Aqualand, and I liked the design a lot. I thought it was very pretty. So if you're a diver and you want to have, one dive watch, but you can wear it on a daily basis, you could do this or just have this in your collection. And I also like quartz dive watches a lot, especially if they're going to be recharged by light, because if it can't be recharged by light and you're on the boat and you realize your watch is dead, you're screwed. But if you realize, like a day before that the battery's dead on this, just stick it in a window or stick it in the sun and you'll be great. Do I prefer Citizen over Seiko? I mean, it doesn't work that way. Yes, this is a depth gauge. I like Japanese brands a lot. They all have pluses and minuses to them, but I'm definitely enthusiastic about Japanese brands, probably more so than Swiss brands a lot. Hello, John. Thank you for your wishes that I'm safe. I guess we're all safe indoors. I've never heard such a cohesive message from around the world where everyone's saying, everyone stay indoors. Staying indoors is not particularly healthy for us in general. We need to exercise, we need to be social, we need to do things. So that the entire world is telling everyone to stay indoors, that's really serious, and it's not coming with any other advice such as how to survive being indoors. Can we see the Oris? Sure. I'll show you the Oris again. Where did it go? There it is. So we need sunlight, we need to move, our bodies, our muscles are going to atrophy, we're going to have low energy, we're going to become depressed. So there's a lot of reasons why this sort of self-isolation thing is easier said than done, far easier said than done. And I've been doing these downtime shows as just one small way to give everyone some company, an hour or so a day of watch conversation. Did I talk about the swatch at the beginning? Somebody wants to see the Girard-Perregaux again. Yeah, okay, I'll show them both. We'll start with the swatch again. Just a few more minutes here. I still haven't spoken about this spring drive, which I want to do. This is the Scuba Libre Chlorophysh. Thank you for who pointed out the chlorophysh part of the name. I forgot that part. But this was like just over $100 when it came out. I think you can still get these, but I thought this was great. Again, the battery is died in this one, but as an inexpensive sort of fun lifestyle watch. Again, how many like skeletonized quartz movement dive watches are there out there? And the case is semi-transparent, so you can see the movement through there. I just think this is so cool. It's definitely a summer watch. That's true. It would be difficult to get away with this in the winter, I guess. Well, it depends where you live. In LA, we can get away with this anytime. Anytime. Am I running low on watches? Oh, what a question. What a question. I will leave you guessing. And then here again is the Girard-Perregaux Laureato Absolute World Timer. This has their in-house made movement. I actually love how the tactile feedback there. Can you hear the crown? And then you turn the crown the other way, and that's how you adjust the inner city ring. The Laureato Absolute it's basically like their version of the Royal Oak Offshore. I guess that's what they're trying to do. So, at Audemars Piguet, you have the Royal Oak and you have the Royal Oak Offshore. Girard-Perregaux has the Laureato, and I think the Laureato Absolute is like a little bit more on their sport watch line. Yeah, these are pretty nice. Laureato Absolute, the chronograph is killer. Someone's asking about Alpina. Yeah, I definitely like Alpina, but it's not, again, it's not that there's like every watch that they make. I mean, there's some Alpinas I think are great. There's others that I'm not too into. What is the watch on the far right? Are you talking about the Vempe, this one? Oh, someone is giving me a tip. Take the battery out of the swatch. The Swiss battery is regarded as a leak. Ooh. Oh, the olive green one? Oh, this right here. This is the Casio G-Shock. This is the Herschel. This is the limited edition they did with Herschel. A little bit. This was late in 2019, and this was my favorite Casio collaboration watch of the last year. Olive green Oriental Buffet. Oh, green olive Oriental Buffet. People are just having fun at this point. I love the comments, everyone. It's difficult for me to pay attention to all the comments while I'm talking about the watches. Olive green strap is military looking. Spring drive already. Okay. Without more ado, is there anything else I've missed here? I talked about. Okay, one more time. This is I talked about this earlier. This is the Icopod Sea Slug. This is a very early version before it said Icopod. It says pod. Okay, someone has offered me $10 for 2 watches. What an offer, sir. What an offer. Okay, so what do we have here? I forget the exact name of this. This represents the first generation watches that Seiko produced with spring drive. This was in like 2006 or so. This isn't the very first one, but this is around the first ones. And this was this was before they came out with the Ananta collection. So you can see how the Ananta sort of worked off of this. This is, again, Seiko. It's not Grand Seiko. So I think what everyone needs to remember that spring drive originated in Seiko, not in Grand Seiko. Ananta was a collection that didn't introduce spring drive, but it was the first collection, I believe, that sold spring drive officially outside of Japan. And that was a really interesting collection. The Ananta, I know those are no longer made, but those are very cool. This watch was actually quite big. I think it was like 44 millimeters wide. And you can see here that this is the standard spring drive movement with the time, date, and the power reserve. So let me ask you a question. What do you people think about spring drive in general? Are you curious about it? Do you want to know more about it? I was speaking with Seiko very recently, and they feel that not enough people, have enough respect for spring drive and what it is. I probably agree. Zaratsu polishing, damn straight. Do you guys understand spring drive well enough? Do you want to know more about spring drive? Does spring drive make it more accurate? Yes. Yes, it does. It does. Okay, so one of the things I think is very important to mention about spring drive is just how long it took for Seiko to basically make the technology work. It took them about 30 years, maybe a little bit more than 30 years. And we'll talk about these later. Someone's mentioning here spring drive and servicing. I've actually had this service, so it was fine. But yeah, I mean, you definitely need Seiko to service it. So spring drive is essentially this. I'll sum it up for you. It's an entirely mechanical movement that takes out your standard regulation system, which is a balance wheel and a balance spring and all that, and replaces it with a quartz oscillator. It's still wound by a spring, and as the spring unwinds, it generates a little bit of electricity, which isn't actually stored anywhere. It just moves directly to the quartz oscillator, which sends a signal that powers the rest of the watch. So it's a hybrid between a mechanical watch with the accuracy of quartz. It's not quite as accurate as your sort of standard quartz watch, at least as advertised, but it's pretty there. It's pretty there. So yeah, so in a lot of ways, someone mentioned this is like a Toyota Prius. This is like the Toyota Prius of watches in a lot of ways. Not a bad thing. It's a hybrid of two technologies working together, trying to get the most out of both of them. Hybrid watch is no good. Why not? This is a very, stylized Seiko. So you can see here that the case is very interesting. And this was not a cheap Seiko. This is at the time before there was much of a separation between Seiko and Grand Seiko. It was a little bit more blurry. And you can see there that the hand glides. So it doesn't sort of stutter along as you would see on a mechanical watch if you looked at it closely, but it glides perfectly. There's no stopping to the motion. So if you compare the glide hand on a spring drive with a sweeping hand on a mechanical watch, you'll see that the sweeping hand on a mechanical watch, it ticks very quickly, whereas the glide hand just moves. And it's very elegant to look at. Very elegant to look at. Okay, so that is, I forget the particular name of this. We did have an article about this years ago on aBlogtoWatch, but this is an early generation Seiko spring drive. And spring drive is definitely something that we're going to talk about more. Okay, everyone, this has been Downtime 2020, episode 11 for March 30th, 2020. We have at least a month more of this to go. What the hell is happening with Quorum these days? Wow, a whole other conversation. Yes, they did have a moon phase version of the spring drive that came out a little bit after this. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Ask your questions, comment, share, and please go to aBlogtoWatch for more information on pretty much all of these watches. I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.